I had a sleep paralysis experience where I was almost abducted. I was living in my apartment and I'd fallen asleep on the couch. And I'd had some minor sleep paralysis where I just woke up and I couldn't move. But this is the first time I saw stuff. I wake up and I'm only able to breathe. I'm struggling just to breathe. It's terrifying. But I look up and I see three of these beings over me, and they've got like this bulbous heads, but they kind of look like their bodies are made of static. Like old TV, when you turn it on, there's nothing there. It looked like that, but it had like the outline of the alien-looking gray kind of thing. And they were looking over me from the back of my couch, looking over me, and just kind of motion. And I start lifting up off of my couch. And I heard people talking about if you say Jesus, it ends. And so I could barely breathe. I couldn't even open my mouth. So I was like this. And all I could say was Jesus, right? Because I couldn't even open my mouth. So it sounded like Jesus. And I immediately fell to the ground.
Hey, Dark Web Theologians. How you guys doing? Guys, we realize sometimes you want to vibe with us. You want to hear what we have to say. You want to hear about our lives and everything. But not everyone is like that. Some of you guys would rather just hear the info. And you know what? Both ways are totally fine. If you would like to hear the info only, we have timestamped this entire podcast. If you would like to jump to a particular spot, you can do that too. However, if you look and you're listening on Spotify, below the podcast itself is actually a transcript that you can actually go and scroll through. So if you guys would just like the info, feel free to hop around wherever you want. If you just want small excerpts or, a small riff or whatever, go and enjoy that. If not, hang around with us. God bless, guys.
Where am I?
Giant country.
The days of our kind are numbered, Ed. The one God comes to drive out the many gods. The spirits of wood and stream grow silent. It's the way of things, yes.
Like that.
Nazca Indians used to bind their infants' heads with rope, elongate the skull like that.
Why?
Honor the gods.
No, God's head is not like that, man.
Depends on who your god is.
You are all my children, and you're lost because you follow blind leaders. These false gods. Systems of the weak. They've ruined my world.
First Kings.
Yeah.
But we were in Second Chronicles at the end, and I had to stop my husband because I was like, they just keep naming giants. There are more than 6 giants named in the Old Testament, and nobody talks about it.
Four brothers.
But they named them. They're named. And the ones with the 6th digit are called out about it. But it's just it's like, I know you don't read your Bible, because if you read your Bible, you'd be freaking out like I am, saying, well, what the heck? There's more than 6 different giants in the first 15 books of the Bible.
Right. The word Nephilim is mentioned twice, but these things show up all the way up even to First Kings.
Right.
I mean, by name, they
do. Well, and the name of the hill that Jesus was crucified on is called the Skull. Why? Well, because the Hebrew belief is that Goliath's head is buried on that hill.
That's right.
That's why it's called Golgotha. I mean, it's like there's so much. Gosh, it's like, go ahead, prove to me I'm wrong. Because
I got a question for both of you. How tall do you think they were, really?
You mean the original Nephilim?
Well, the original ones, yes, but also like the ones that the Israelites would have gone against in the conquest.
13 feet-ish, around 13, going off of Og's.
Even the pre-flood ones?
No,
No,
I
I
don't
think
think so.
pre-flood was bigger. I think
Yeah.
that they have gotten smaller as they have, for lack of a better word,
Gotten
watered
better
down
at
their
it.
genes.
Yeah.
So there's some
Possibly
reasons.
gotten better at it because I think
Yeah.
that it's beneficial because they want to look like mankind. They want to
Yeah.
totally fit in with us.
You don't really
But
fit in if you're this gigantic 13
no.
foot. Well, and a lot of people say
Yeah,
like
we
they
put
were
you
only
in
6 feet
wrestling.
tall because the Israelites were small. But I mean, King
Because the
Saul was like
average size of a guy was 5'2".
King Saul was 6 feet tall, and he was terrified of Goliath.
Well, so hold on. So what does it say about Saul and then David in the songs that they would sing
Yeah.
about David? That Saul was tall and David was
David
head
was.
and shoulders over him.
Yep.
So David
So
was
Ricky,
not
what do you
5'2".
think? Right, he wasn't. Ricky, what do you think?
Oh man,
the height of the Nephilim.
thoughts of brimming. I think that pre-flood that you're looking. I mean, I can't give you an exact amount, but I mean, I would say at least double in stature what we see after the flood. At least double in stature.
Well,
if not
everything
higher.
before the flood was much bigger and better.
Correct.
But they say even people were
and then-
probably bigger than
Yeah,
even
that's
like
also true.
Adam and
That's
Eve
also
were
true.
were taller.
Shelley brought up an interesting point about watering down of genetics. That was a product of the initiation of the law, all the laws of thermodynamics, but the second law in
Right. Well, our own DNA
which
since
causes
Adam
us-
has slowly been
correct.
degrading.
That's exactly my
Right.
point. And so that
And
that
so the Nephilim
contributed
DNA that
also
probably went even
all of
quicker.
it. And I mean,
Because
No,
they were
guys,
angels
you're
didn't mate with
wrong.
angels.
We're evolving, not devolving. Don't you
Correct.
know the science?
And so I would say probably, somewhere between, I don't know, 16 to 13, maybe 17 to 13 feet. That's probably, but again, that's a slow, it's going to slowly peter out the longer that we have these kind of generations. And we see this, and not to get too much into modern stuff, but we see this in a lot of the modern exhumations of skeletal remains of the Nephilim here in the U.S.
The
in particular,
Smithsonian
we have a little
has
bit
the
more.
bones.
They
so-
do indeed have the
Right,
bones, my
down in
friend.
the very
I almost
dark
wore my
recesses.
blurry creature shirt that says exactly that. The
Good for you,
Smithsonian
man. I'm
has the
glad.
bones. I love that.
I almost wore my Sasquatch shirt because we were talking about Nephilim.
We're almost there. We're almost to the weird.
But no, you're
super
good.
Weird, so.
But
We're almost to the weird. Oh yeah, because everything else we've been
Yeah.
talking
Right.
about doesn't
Here's the thing,
qualify.
everything that I've talked about, I find normal now.
Us
I wanted
too.
to touch
No,
on.
right?
I know. Well, this is what we talk about all the time, right? I wanted to touch on what you were asking about how they survived the flood. So, I mean,
I
I'll
forgot to tell you.
No, you're good, man. You're good. I'll be really frank. To me, I think it's ridiculous that they would be on the boat. That's my personal opinion, and I know that some people, dig
I
that.
do
And that's their
agree.
thing. I just think that it's a little. It seems a little weird to me. The reason
It seems
that
weird that they would be back at all, though.
Well, it seems weird that they would be at all, right?
Think for a second, guys, of every song, country song, pop song, metal song, doesn't matter. Every song, every movie, every book, every play ever written, it's always about love.
Oh yeah.
Love. It's, you know what? He left his wife, but he loved the woman that he left his wife for.
Yeah.
Well, that's
And
the thing, right?
we
That's the
deify
thing.
love to such a stupid degree
Yeah.
that it seems to me like we're conditioned to always excuse somebody's
Right, like
behavior
it's like
for
the
love.
highest virtue, and it excuses all wrongdoings. And
So
in
the
fact,
Right, like
isn't
love
that
is
really?
just accepting
Isn't that what
everything that you've ever done. And
Isn't that what we're
love
dealing with
sometimes
right
is
now?
flipping over
Frankly,
tables.
I mean, we're dealing with the fact that angels, well, they loved her, they lusted after her, and there's more to it than that, right? But because the word talks about the women being
They
fit
loved
extensions.
their children.
But
fit
yeah, but they wanted to
extensions.
procreate, and
That's
they
what
were.
the whole
I
book of
mean,
Enoch is about.
hot
How they're
mamas, right?
sad
Right.
about all of this.
Call it what it is. So to come back to your question, like, do I think? Hold on. Do I think that they went underground? I think it's possible. Do I think that there were local floods? I think that's unlikely, but I also think that
No, I
that's a
think it was
possibility given the
worldwide.
grammar. I don't ascribe to that view.
Science
Do I?
shows worldwide
If it
evidence.
was just a
Agreed,
local
agreed.
flood, God would just say, "Move over there."
No. When I say
Right,
local
right,
flood,
right.
when I say local flood, I don't mean, and again, I don't adhere to
Yeah,
this this idea, but they say that there were floods in multiple places. And so I still don't think that adds up to it, but it says that the mountaintops were covered, and then like the grammar also suggests that they weren't necessarily covered.
Well, the
I don't
mountains
ascribe to
were
that they were
created
not.
by the flood, like the
I agree
mountains
Right,
with
are
you.
that
today.
as
I agree with
well.
you.
Yeah,
I
from
agree with you.
the well springs. Right, right.
Yep.
So, well, not all of them, right? But a good amount of them, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But there is something that I wanted to mention to you guys that I stumbled across while I was listening to a really interesting talk in some obscure reference to the Nephilim in the in the Old Testament that like no one even ever thinks about. And I think it actually was in First or Second Chronicles when they're going through just genealogies. Apparently, and if like the Bible references this person, I'll have to look it up. I don't know it offhand, but there's a reference in the Bible that says to look back at Jasher, and it references an individual. I think it is in Chronicles. And this individual, if you go and look it up in Jasher, found the tablets that explained how the gods were using genetic manipulation to be able to create this hybrid race. And so the theory is that they came back, and I ascribe to this at some level, but not 100%. I think that probably both things happened. I think that there was probably another incursion, and I think that there was also humans that were manipulating things to change their genetics, frankly.
Sure. Well,
so
yeah, I mean, the book of Yasser, it talks
thing
about them mixing with other species too.
Absolutely, and that's part of it too, right? I mean, that all these tablets also include the information about Azazel doing all this garbage on his little particular island where he was making all his little science experiments, and that
Hold
is
on,
where
you mean that there's other bad guys in the Bible other than
I
Satan?
know it's hard to believe that Satan doesn't
right, other than just good old Lucy.
Lucy. Anyway, so I actually do ascribe to two different ideas, and my particular ideas are three maybe. I think that there was probably another incursion. There probably was. I think that there still are incursions. Frankly, I mean, I think that's.
I just don't think it was 200. I don't think it was a 200 angel conspiracy this time. I think it was, I think it was a one-off here, a one-off there, and I think they thought,
so why?
Maybe we can fly under the radar there because I love her.
Right.
So why did God not punish those the same that He punished the ones before?
I don't think. Well, the Bible's silent on it, right? I mean, it's not the Bible, but then again, the Bible's also silent on whether or not there was another incursion. So, maybe we already just have the precedent and we kind of have the idea. I'm not saying that that's the case, but I think like it's sort of one of those things where the damage is already done. It's like, when God,
all we can do is speculate. Ultimately, we have no
hold on, because let me jump in here.
Hold on, let me finish my thought, and then you can hop in. So when God set the precedent for sending these angels to eternal darkness and chains and the hefty sin that they're paying for, even now, right? And their judgment is in wait for them, their final judgment. I think that God intentionally set that precedent so that any other ones that wanted to try knew exactly what was coming to them in the long run. Mm-hmm. But I mean, that's just speculation. Again, go ahead,
Sean. So when it repenteth God that He made man, and He brought the flood, I believe that the world was at a tipping point. There was so much angelic DNA and corruption in everything, in plants, stock, and animals
was in danger at that point.
Right. That tipping point was almost there that's why he King X'd it. That's really what I think. One,
Well, and that's why he
one
tells the Israelites,
angel.
don't mate with anybody outside because you will
Right.
ruin.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Don't
Yep.
take away your purity. But
It
I
wasn't a
think
racist thing. It wasn't like, oh, don't do that because those
It was-
there might be black guys. Or
It was
wasn't
a
that.
human.
No.
It was a human racist thing.
That's
Right,
right.
right.
The human race is, and that's the same reason why God tells us don't wear flax and cotton, don't grow two things in the same field,
Mhm.
don't roast a
All the
kid in its mother's
weird
milk.
old laws and stuff. Yep.
That were like, the heck, I can't
Right.
wear poly cotton
That's
blends.
what
I
I
can't
always
eat a
tell people when
cheeseburger.
they start bringing those up. I said there had to be an extremely strict diet plan, and I mean, God is putting them on. He is saying, "Look, I need to bring the Messiah through you, and so I have to have." So God must have foreseen something in the future that had to do with poly cotton or whatever,
Right.
with something with polyester that was going to be a problem, and so
Well,
he just said, "No,
and
we're not doing
honestly,
it."
science has found all sorts of things, but that's a rabbit trail for another day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But
Non-necessary.
one whatever. So the Prince of Persia finds a woman that he thinks he loves and can't do without, and he procreates with her. Well, because everybody knows about the Prince of Persia from
Absolutely.
the Daniel story.
Well, I mean, we have people, we have other religions that do tell us, like I think it's either another incursion or they were on the boat. I don't think that they were.
I'm going to go with incursion, and I think incursion is too big of a word to use because it wasn't planned like it was with Shemyaza and his posse.
All the other religions after that tell us that they have beings that came down and mated with human beings and created these other
Hercules, right?
Hercules is a Nephilim, right?
Are you kidding? The Queen of England, good old King Charles, believes he's descended from Odin.
He might be.
Oh, he's about to go meet him too. So
they all right.
Oh, I was going to tell you, man. The only reason that I actually even went with this theory that maybe there's something to this for these guys being in the ground. I think that. So here's the thing. I'm just going to lay the groundwork because that's the way Shell and I really. I think that we kind of try and figure things out, and especially me. That's how I figure things out. I'm like, okay, I have to look at all of it.
Right.
I don't think it's a one and done. I don't think that there's a simple answer to this kind of thing. I think it's a complicated, convoluted, highly suspect set of occurrences.
And that's probably why the Bible is silent on it, because it was just it wasn't just a single event that happened. And this is where they all came from.
Obviously, it's not important enough for us to know right now, right? Right. That's the reason we're left to speculate. But the reason I think that there's any credence to that at all is because of Deuteronomy 5 verse 8 says, this is where God is laying stuff down for the Israelites. It's literally in the Ten Commandments. He says, you shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, or that is on the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. He does not say on the earth. He does not say contained by the earth. He says under the earth. And what the heck is under the earth? You know what I'm saying?
A hollow earth kind of thing.
Well, I mean, I actually do ascribe a lot more to a hollow earth.
I think that we just have no idea. I think we have because the whole idea of what is under the earth, according to scientists, is based on the assumptions of how it was created. And so they think we know what is in the earth because we know how it was created, but they think it was created just by rock smashing together.
Well, that's the same way that we think we know what a black hole is because we have we have the mathematical equations.
Yeah, I think that once everything's all said and done, we're going to realize how we know nothing.
Oh yeah.
like how many people's
the
lives
heavens
were
are
wasted.
above the earth.
Right.
You know
how many
what
people's
though?
lives were wasted on things that just were false.
Well, there's going to be lots of that, but I think too, it's funny when you talk to quantum physicists. Do you know how many of them are atheists?
Not many, because
Not very many.
Right,
because
very small amount.
when you get down to the weird, strange stuff that interacts with only conscious beings, sometimes you start to change your perspective on things about how
you
this
watch,
universe is literally a digital simulation that we're in.
and he rolled it up like a scroll.
Yeah. That's why there's a Neil deGrasse Tyson video where he talks about how there's a 50-50 shot that we're in a simulation, and honestly, I'm just like, dude, that is God, right?
Right. We are in God's simulation. We just also happen to be real.
It's funny to me that people are so offended by the idea of God and everything, but I'm like, all you're doing is changing the words. Like it's just you're playing semantics, and you think that you have any right to kind of remake reality in your
who
image.
programmed it?
Right.
You've got
a very complicated DNA code.
I call that programmer God. That's all it is.
My DNA was coded, and I know the name of the coder.
I think it was on Joe Rogan, actually. As a matter of fact, some guys got together and they replaced a bunch of words in the openings for Genesis with a bunch of computer programming language, and it says, "In the beginning was the programmer," and the programmer was with the code. And the code was God. Like, it's very interesting to listen to the whole thing.
I have no problem with any of that. I would love.
I don't either. Because really,
and the code was with God, and the code was God.
Well, I sent you the cover of that book that I'm in the middle of, dude. That book, is on dimensions and talking about God. And I mean, before I even read this book, I've been trying to get people to change how they talk about God, because God is the sole supreme hyper-dimensional being that exists. And then there are extra dimensional beings that exist, and then we are 3-dimensional beings that exist who experience 4 dimensions. But all of heaven is not a place that is somewhere out there. Heaven is in another dimension here,
or is in other dimensions,
or
it is multi-dimensional. I am
string theory says that we have at least 10 dimensions.
Right.
And God is just in the dimension above all of that.
Which is what he is, right? He is the one who created time for us. It is literally his construct.
Yeah. Well, it's why he presents himself in 3 persons. It makes sense that the sole hyperdimensional being that exists doesn't make sense and expresses himself in 3 persons, right?
Yeah.
Imagine how could you possibly think that 1st century Jews came up with that concept?
Right.
That is beyond me. That is so advanced scientifically.
David tried to put it into words, and that's why David said, "As high as the heavens are above the earth, so great are your thoughts concerning me, O Lord."
The funniest part about all that is that the church fathers, the early church fathers, slowly were able to coalesce on a single idea of what God, aspects of how God actually works, what it meant that Jesus was God, and what it meant that the Holy Spirit was God, and what it meant that Yahweh was God, right? Mm-hmm. That's why, and I think that's why there was so much infighting and factions, because people wanted to be right.
Because they're trying to grasp a concept that is so difficult to grasp.
And so that's why you get these Gnostic ideas, and you get these very literal ideas, and then you get a combination of both, right? Because you're grappling with some really difficult realities.
Yeah.
Well, and then when the Holy Spirit throws something, he drops something in you and gives you a revelation of himself, and then you're like, I have this revelation and it's
Yeah.
fire for you, and you try to
Yeah.
describe it to other people, and it's not always fire for somebody else, you know.
Right.
Right,
And so you
because it
spend
doesn't make any
your
sense to them because God knows you personally and how to get to you.
Correct.
right,
Correct.
and you spend your whole existence just trying to get
Yeah.
them to know that awesomeness
Yeah.
and
I mean, some of the most intimate moments that I've ever had with God, if I explain them to you, you'd be like, oh, that sounds cool. But to me, it was just like, that was the most profound thing I've ever experienced
right.
in my life.
Well, because it's like
And you know what?
sex.
Those,
You can try to describe it to people, but none of us are adequate at describing it. You
So I
have
want
to
to kind of,
experience it.
yeah,
Sorry, Rick.
I want to kind of get back a
That's
little
accurate.
bit.
It's just very funny to me.
Testament. We talked about the New Testament. And we talked about how the way I like to kind of segue into this is God, every time that this topic of the Nephilim shows up, God shows up extremely pissed off, right?
I wonder why.
And there's one other time that God tells us he's going to come back extremely pissed off, and that is in the book of Revelation.
Yes, it is.
So we can talk about eschatology now. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes along with this.
Yeah.
I'll kind of lay out my thoughts.
Sure, go for it, Ben.
And then you guys can just tell me what your thoughts are.
Certainly.
So for me, I think quite a few things about this. This is a topic that I'm still not 100% on for everything. I'm still trying to wrap my I'm going to work my way through this. But talking about these things with other people is how I form my opinions on these.
Absolutely.
And so, so again, I thank you guys so much for doing this with me.
Of course, man.
Because this topic
We're having
is
a blast.
this topic is like one for go on for hours and hours and hours, and we've already gone for 2 hours.
Honestly, I feel like we haven't even touched the surface, to be honest.
Right.
Right. Well, and we've just kind of skimmed over every.
Yeah,
topic.
we really have.
So, for those who have who are interested in this topic, there is an infinite amount. I mean, like I said at the beginning, I've studied this topic in depth for 7 years, and I still have not found the bottom of this Heiser hole, is what I call it.
Right.
Hey.
So this rabbit hole, once you go down it, be prepared. I mean, it is because you find something in the Bible, a topic, and you dig into it, you'll be in that topic for quite a while. This is just one that is so deep that I mean it's I mean, Dr. Heiser started an entire podcast called the Naked Bible Podcast, where he went through how all of this fits into the entire Bible, even the book of Revelation that we're going to talk about here in a second. So my views as far as Revelation go, I'm what's called a historical premillennialist. Right? For those who don't know what that is, it's kind of the historical view that the idea that the millennium is still to come, that it will be an actual millennium.
Yeah, because if
at
this
some
is
point-
it, I signed up for the wrong thing.
Right. I think the least likely of all of those systems is the post-millennial view. I think that's a silly.
Absolutely.
To say that
Makes
everything
no
happened
sense.
in 70 AD, like Heiser said, a lot of things are already but not yet. That
Absolutely.
it's this book of Revelation has the enemy has tried to fulfill it repeatedly throughout history and failed. At some point, there will be a time where it's fulfilled. So, okay. And I believe it's Thessalonians where it talks about the Great Deception. I think that's Thessalonians,
But
right? Is that
Jesus warns us about it in Matthew 24:25.
Right. Right. They're all kind of talking about this same view. And so I also don't believe that like we're going to get zapped out of here at any time in the pre-tribulation rapture. I'm what's called
glad we're all on the same page.
I know. I'm what's called God, there's so many terms for this. I hate it, but it's called a pre-wrath post-tribulation because the Bible never says that there is a 7-year tribulation. Not one time does it say it. Twice it says that it is 3.5 years. It says it 2 times. It says it in days and it says it in months. Okay.
Yeah, but the weeks,
there is a 7-year period, and 3.5 of those is the Great Tribulation.
Right.
The rest of that is the wrath of God, according to this view, right? And we are not subject to wrath. So
yeah,
that's
and
the
that's
idea
still
that
that's still a week. So yeah.
Right.
The 7 weeks.
Right. Of Daniel. So,
and again, you know what? Not a hill I would die on. Any of that.
I mean,
You happen to
we'll
agree
find
with
out
us?
in the end.
If he toots and we scoots and he comes like 3 or 4 times, even though it was the day of the Lord, well, yeah, okay, got it wrong.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I'm pretty sure I'm ready for the long haul.
Right. And I just want to press this. I hate how people get so pissed off about this topic. They will leave a church over eschatology.
Yeah.
And like I've taught my eschatological views in churches before, and I've had to preface them because I didn't hold the traditional pre-tribulation rapture view. And I mean, people leave the church over this stuff, and that's so stupid.
Dude, I'm
guys.
Assemblies of God, and they absolutely believe that all the amazing, great Christians who did nothing for the cause of Christ will be feasting those 7 years while people are losing their heads for the cause of Christ, who aren't worthy to join the feast.
Well, Revelation 21 says that the first resurrection will include people who were beheaded by the Antichrist. So the pre-tribulation can't happen. And I posted that on my page, and some of the responses I got, well, the resurrection isn't the rapture. The rapture isn't a resurrection. I was like, what would you call
then what the
when
heck?
the dead
What if
in
the dead in Christ rise first?
Well,
Right.
that's because we that's one of those freaking boxes, man. You make the word rapture, and then you want to put a stamp of approval on it and make it mean whatever you think it should mean.
I have full sympathy for that view. I grew up in a pre-tribulation church. I still go to that church, and it is a pre-tribulation. My pastor is great because he taught on Revelation, and he's a pre-trib guy. But that's not the only eschatological system that he talked about. He's openly said there are other views, and we might be wrong, so we need to be prepared. And I was just like, sure, if you're going to believe, like I can be wrong. I openly admit that I have no idea.
I mean, I'd like to be wrong. I would like a pre-trib rapture. I'm not going to lie. Sounds good.
What I tell people is hope for a pre-trib rapture, but plan for one that's not. Right?
That's right. Plan to be standing when Christ comes drenched in blood with eyes like fire. Man, that's what I'm planning.
Brings us to the point of the great deception, right? Because my view of the great deception is that at some point, maybe even fairly soon, the great deception doesn't have to happen, and then the tribulation happens. That's
right.
I think that it could happen at any time.
Yeah,
this deception,
I think,
and then that could boil because that will take some time to have an effect on the church to cause the great falling away. Right?
Yeah,
it's not just going to be because some people will lose their faith immediately when this event I'm about to describe happens, but a lot of people will still hold true to it. So it could take some time. And
the Catholic Church is preparing
for some kind of alien invasion.
Right.
That's what it is. Like, and whether it is an Project Bluebeam kind of thing, or it is just faked in some way, or whether it is actual sons of God in their little man-made ships, or sons of God made ships that they're using to go around through the cosmos. I mean, here's the thing, like, people, please, okay, get a different idea of the supernatural world. Read the book of Ezekiel and tell me that there's no vehicles in the supernatural realm. Read that.
Tell me what Elijah went up in. What did Elijah go up in?
Yeah. It wasn't just
he didn't
sprout fiery horses, right?
Right.
They were trying to describe, using their vernacular, things that we can't even describe without.
Right. And for that matter, there's not even that. Think of Elisha when his servant comes to him and says,
Mhm.
Master, we are surrounded. The kings have found you.
Mhm.
Let's panic.
Mhm.
And Elijah
He's like,
tells
what are you
him,
talking about?
"No, we're good. Our army's bigger than theirs." And he's like,
Yeah.
1, 2,
And
2.
Me and you.
Yeah, and he's seeing all of these other beings around them trying to screw
Mhm.
with him.
And the
Yeah,
word says he prayed, Lord, open his eyes, and then he saw the hills covered
Yep.
with
yep.
horses and
Replete.
chariots of
And
fire.
that
All
might have
sorts of
changed his mind a little bit for a
armament.
second. He
Yeah.
might have gone, oh well, maybe,
He might have gone, I
maybe.
guess our army is bigger. All right. You want to do what? We're going to strike him with blindness and lead him into the king?
Yep.
Okay.
I want to say, Caton, I think that you're talking about the Great Deception, man, and the Great Deception, in my view, is something that is a slow roll. Just like when the
Yeah.
Nephilim were pushed out of the Promised Land, it was a slow roll. It was not an instant thing, right?
Yeah.
God, we unfortunately live in a very hyperactive, hyper moving society now, where
Yeah.
we think that everything should instantaneously take place. And
Mhm.
that's why when people are like, "Oh, I don't believe the aliens. Oh, I don't believe Congress.
Well,
Oh, I don't believe,"
yeah.
I'm just like, well, sure, of
Well,
course
and
you
most
don't,
people don't
because
realize, like,
you're
our government has
predisposed to
openly
not be.
admitted all of this
Yeah.
stuff is
Well,
real. They've
well,
said
but
this
the
is
problem,
real.
but the problem with that, that the government is shrouded in lies, and so
Right.
they use
Well,
that to their
it's every time a
advantage
Hunter
for
Biden
people not to
laptop
believe.
gets released, they're like, aliens are real.
Right. Well, the thing too is it's already been a slow walk. It's been a
Correct.
slow
Yeah.
walk since 1947. It was
Yep.
actually a slow walk even
Since
before
before
that.
that,
The day that Orson Welles went on and did the mock alien invasion, and people
yeah,
were
Oh yeah.
losing their
Yeah. Okay.
minds. That was
There's a
what, in the 30s?
yeah.
There's a documentary that, if you haven't seen it already, I highly recommend you watch this, because I think it's called Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. And it's by Dr. I think it's Stephen Greer. He's that
By Greer?
hippie alien.
Yeah.
And I think it's Fifth Kind is what it is. Watch this documentary because he has a movement, right? And this
Mhm.
movement is where, in this documentary, they go out into like the desert and they form this circle, and they all
And
sit
they
and
call
they
the
pray to
aliens.
Yep.
these. They do a pagan ritual, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
these beings
Yep.
show up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Of course they do.
Yep.
What?
Of course they
Yep.
do.
And
It's
so
so new
this is
agey.
what
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
talking about. Because I agree with you. I think it's a slow roll,
Yeah.
and that eventually there will be some sort of an event, but it will
Mhm.
be slowly
But
as mankind has accepted all
Certainly.
of this.
Well,
did you
and
watch the Super Bowl yesterday?
I don't ever watch
are you talking about the
Okay, well,
halftime
here's
show
the
or?
deal.
demonic for me stuff.
No,
I can't.
I went to my pastor's and we watched it. Um and I rooted for the winning team, and I'm very glad that they won. And the first half of the game was boring, and I don't do commercials. I don't even watch television where there's commercials, but got to see all these commercials, which is such a weird thing anymore for me. But
Right.
there were
You can't skip them.
there were two different commercials that had aliens.
Mhm.
It, like,
Oh,
not
that's right.
alien invasion, aliens coming.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, L.A. Marzulli was
I reposted that. Did you see that?
yeah, I did. That you
Yeah.
had put it on. I was like, oh yeah, I'm so glad L.A. commented
Called it
on
out.
I
it,
would love to
because
meet
I
him. I would
noticed
love
it
to
too.
meet
Oh,
him
me
and talk to
too.
him.
We're
Me
hoping to
too.
soon enough.
Right, really soon. Actually, we
Oh,
we
yeah?
have
Y'all
met
reaching out to
in.
him?
Yes.
Not quite, but God's thrown a lot of really
And I'd
interesting
like to
things
talk to
our
Tim
way.
Alvarino.
If
I'd like
you're
to get him
CTD
too.
if you're CTDW, you're one of our dark web theologians. We got some very interesting, potentially very interesting information on the
That's
horizon.
cool.
Anyway.
We've got
That's
some
awesome.
interesting things happening, but
Yeah.
more and more, we are somewhere in that walking process. I don't know how much you guys remember of 9/11. I remember it.
Oh yeah. I was in 11th grade.
I
I
was
watched it
How
when
old are
it
you?
happened.
Peyton, how old are you?
almost 40.
You're
Yeah, I'm
how old?
38.
Oh, look, you guys are.
38.
You're the same age as me. Why don't you were in
It's
11th grade?
this. Yeah.
No, we weren't in 11th grade.
It was 2001. Yeah. I graduated in 2003.
It was in 90.
No, it's
99,
2001.
It was
No,
2001.
2001.
I started in 2000. I started in
I was in
1999
10th
to
grade.
2003.
I was in 10th
You were in
grade.
10th grade.
I was a July birthday, so I was
Nah, one of
the
those
youngest
is-
in my class. Yeah.
Okay,
So,
anyway,
yeah.
sorry.
So I was an adult who lived on a military installation, and my husband
yeah.
was at Fort Huachuca, and my mother was on active duty, and my stepmother was working for a congressman. So I
Oh,
remember
wow.
all of that very
Oh,
well because I didn't
wow.
know where any of them were, and
You
we
were
were waiting.
in the know. Yeah.
Yeah, no
we
kidding.
were waiting for the second shoe to fall, you know.
Mhm.
But
Well, I remember when we watched it. My mom, we were sitting there watching when the second plane hit, and plane. We'll see about that. We can talk about that another time.
Right.
But because I remember what my mom said when it
Second
happened, she
object
said
arrived with the big
she
thing.
said that was a rocket. That's what she said.
Well,
Because
that's what it was.
Because it was.
Look at it, same with the Pentagon. There was never
Well, let's
any
just-
wing damage.
Let's just say
but
I don't believe their story about that at
I don't think
all
any of us do. to be
there
honest.
there's a lot of Swiss cheese in that one. But
Especially
be
after
that
they
as
went
it
through the
may,
building.
at that moment, we all pretty much American sentiment was the highest it has ever been in America.
Oh, yeah. I remember
think.
that time. I remember
But
that time. Everybody was
I remember
brother and sisters, and we're all Americans.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm on a military
For about a week.
installation out in the middle of, I'm in a military installation out in the middle of the California desert, and it lasted a lot longer for us. But
Well, of course.
I remember being glued to the television and watching Bush come out and say, we're going to get these dastardly people, whoever they were, whatever.
If you're not with us, you're against us.
Yep, and we'll take you all down. And then the next day he ramped it up a step and said, we had somebody from the Middle East, these Muslims were going after them, blah, 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 blah. And then the next day his rhetoric was he stepped up step by step by step. He didn't take shush.
Yeah,
He didn't take
incremental.
any leaps at all.
It wasn't like, okay, let's go attack Iraq now.
Right, because we would have said, no.
Yeah.
You have to give us some sort of more proof than that.
Right.
And they know that that's how we are. They know that you're not going to get people to jump off the cliff. But by golly, if you just get them a little step here, a little step here, you'll get them to the valley.
Video here, an admission there. Okay, Canada, you go ahead and say that they're real.
Correct.
We'll say that they're real.
Right.
And
because
this is really the slow rolling, and I guess this is about a good place as any. I'm going to lay out kind of my thoughts, and I think Shelley and I kind of have the same thoughts on this. Maybe not identical, but pretty close. So
we also need to tie in how the Nephilim how this goes.
That's exactly where I'm going, brother.
No
exactly
problem.
Shelley knows me. We've been doing this too long by now, right? So when
this is why Nephilim matter, other than the fact that it makes the Bible make sense.
Yeah.
So
this is why Nephilim matter.
There is a current convergence of the physical and the spiritual, the scientific and the spiritual that is on the regular roll right now. That is seen in CERN. It's seen in fact,
and their
it's seen
demonic
in
god
transgenderism.
that sits right outside, that's sitting in front of a portal.
It's seen in transgenderism, and transgenderism and transhumanism go hand in hand, because the transhumanist candidate that ran for the presidency on the most recent ticket said that he was the only person that actually voted for himself, but he was the transhumanist candidate. He said that we in the transgender movement need to have so many things in common, we need to align. And that mentality is being pushed forth farther and harder than ever. And right alongside it is this magic or spirituality, whatever you want to call it, magic and scientific convergence that is happening. And so when that convergence happens, we're going to start to see, one, the option to upgrade the body, which is probably going to, I think, come before the return of the gods. I think that's going to happen personally before the return of the gods.
I think it's going to be part of what they're going to offer us.
Well, I'm getting there. But
still.
And so I think that either it's going to show up first, or they're going to come and they're going to help perfect it. And that is going to be like what
the Marvel superheroes, which is why those
we're going to be as gods.
You'll be like a god.
They'll be like, look, guys, we have come from the future. We are you. You know, Christ was one that came before us. We represent him. All the great faiths and all the great faith traditions came before us. We have come.
None of you were wrong. You just all misinterpreted it,
different
and you're all right in your own way.
All different iterations of the same thing, which is they've been laying the groundwork, right? I just posted this week about
most people already believe that, even if they're atheists anyway.
Yeah, they absolutely
we're all
do,
just copying off of each other, and
exactly. And so we see, like, for example, Quetzalcoatl is literally, when you break down one of his original names, one of his non-iteration names, kind of the base form, literally is
morning star.
The morning star. It's literally the same thing. So we're going to start to see this kind of thing play out more and more and more.
Yes,
and when these dudes show up, that's exactly what it's going to be. And Shelley and I have talked about this at length. Neither of us believe.
Well, he's a serpent. Also, he's depicted as a serpent.
Right.
Yep, the plumed
serpent and a winged thing.
And a winged thing. Ain't no thing but a serpent wing.
A winged serpent, kind of like the Nakash in the Bible.
T-shirt worthy. It's exactly the Nakash.
It's
or the Seraph.
Or Nagini,
the shining
in Harry Potter.
Nagini,
I'm just saying,
right?
Nagini, which is Hindu. And so what we believe is going to happen, to tie this back into the Nephilim, my firm belief is that once we are modified, that is what the Bible talks about, not being able to buy or sell, is that you will literally, it's not even going to be like a thing like, dude, you're not going to be able,
you're denied access.
It's just like, you're not even relevant.
You can't compete.
You're not even relevant to our system anymore. There's nothing for you to do here. You cannot buy, you cannot sell. There's nothing here for you.
Troglodyte.
Well, and then there's I always point people to a very strange part of the book of Revelation that most people just kind of skip over, and it says that the men. Well, this is extra strange because this is probably the most strange part of it, because it says that men will want to die but will not be capable of doing so. And that's exactly what Elon Musk is trying to do with Neuralink.
Yep.
He is trying to download consciousness.
So creepy.
Downloading consciousness, and he's already got somebody with a chip in him. What's scary about
it? Was it last week?
A couple of weeks ago, I think it was. A week ago, maybe. I mean, that is coming. And here's the thing. In some way, this is going to incorporate these fallen beings and their DNA somehow being added to us. Because this is why God says, because I've always found it weird, like you could go worship Satan right now. You could devote your life to Satan right this moment.
And you could still be saved.
And then you could still be saved. But if you take this mark, which is still, it's a devotion to Satan.
Correct.
You cannot be saved.
Yeah.
The same as the Nephilim.
That is weird. Because here's the thing, like this is why I always talk about like hell, and I'm an annihilationist, except for those people who take the mark as far as hell goes. That's the kind of where I've leaned right now. I'm willing to be wrong, but this is one of the reasons why, is because those
can you define that for me, because I don't actually know what that
annihilationism is. The idea that God's going to give those people what they want whenever they die. They're going to be burned up and not exist anymore. Is that the punishment is eternal because they don't exist anymore, right? And that is And that's, I mean, I'm not, you know, I'm not dogmatic about this. This is just something that I've kind of,
just your perspective.
when I go and I read into the text, there's the only text that talks about people burning for forever is this passage talking about the people who take the beast or take the mark of the beast. Every other passage talks about the fire lasting for forever and the smoke lasting for forever, but not that people are burning for forever.
Well, and that's the second death, which is a very
and I'm pretty sure that Heiser was an annihilationist
final.
also. He never openly came, but he alluded to that many times. But one of the things that I've also heard that was probably the best response I've ever heard anybody say is, I trust the God who washed the feet of Judas to do the right thing.
Yeah,
when it comes to hell and all of that kind of stuff. So well, that's it. I mean, that's all I have to say. It doesn't matter what I think or you think or any of that stuff, because hell was not created for us. It was created for the Satan. And
in the end, I am convinced. That's right.
Yeah.
I know in whom I believe, and I am persuaded that he keeps that which I commit to him against that
Put
day.
words to what you're saying, I think, bro, is basically, if you will not be able to enter the kingdom of God because you will be a Nephilim. That's what the mark of the beast means.
Right.
You will no longer be human.
The marker of the beast. That's a genetic marker.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is. I mean, on your mark or on your forearm or on your forehead, and that mark doesn't have to be for other people. That is a mark.
When you got it in your arm.
Oh, yeah, you get it. I mean, yeah, right. People taking pictures and showing, look what I've got. I've got this, you know, and people, I mean, the CRISPR stuff that they have going on with the gene editing stuff, that is getting more and more. I mean, I keep telling people, like, you think that transgenderism is crazy. Wait till you see people that start to look like cats.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, and that's
next.
But
again, you mean again,
right?
Right.
Right.
That's the incrementalism, right? That's the intention. Yeah. Like, that is the intention, is to wear away at the psyche, to wear away at not only the psyche but at the conscience, right? Because a seared conscience works just fine. That's exactly what we call the banished want. That's exactly what they want. They want you to have no conscience. They want it to be seared, and they want you to not have any focused way of really reflecting on any of these things. Actually, that was one of our first episodes.
Well,
that's one of the
they
best
also
things that the enemy
gaslight the
does.
crap out of everybody because
distract us. Like, we're so busy in our brains that our hearts don't connect with the Lord, and so I mean, that's it's their ploy, bro.
Well, and they gaslight everybody and make you feel crazy because, like on one hand, you've got the government that acknowledges all of these things. They openly say all of this stuff happens. And I watched this documentary the other day that had some people, government people on it. It's called "What They Don't Want You to Know About UFOs," and it's really just like debunking UFOs and stuff. And like, so they'll say one thing in one hand, and then they'll come back and they'll try to say, well, you're crazy for believing this. But so it's like, okay. Well, I don't care what you think about me. I don't care if you think I'm a crazy person. Like, I've seen some really crazy stuff in my life, and I know that this stuff is very, very real.
See, this reminds me of our conversation with John Kerwin.
Yeah,
and like Heiser says, all it takes is for one story of all of the UFO stories and all of this to be what they say that it is, and it busts the paradigm. That's it.
Sure.
Like, all it needs is for Bigfoot. Like, I don't look at Bigfoot stuff. I tend to focus more on the alien stuff. I've found that people, when you talk to people about Bigfoot, they immediately closed off from that. And I'm trying to reach a wider audience. That
I get you.
Give me some Sasquatch.
Yeah.
and
all
honestly,
day, baby.
I've just never really even looked into all the Bigfoot stuff. I have a friend, though, that he, and this isn't Bigfoot, but he sent me a message because I was asking people if they'd ever witnessed anything crazy like this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And he sent me a message, and I've known this guy. I went to college with him. He is not the kind of guy. He was like,
sure,
tell anybody I said this to you. I'm not going to say his name, but he was like,
I'll just call you a liar.
Well, he said, I experienced this where I was driving with me and my wife, and we had an experience with what I can only describe as the dog man. And and that's one of the the crazy cryptid things. And
yeah.
I like to tell
Confessionals are
people,
all
so
over
look,
that one right now.
right. The Bible tells us what we need to know about the supernatural world.
Yeah.
It doesn't give us all of the characters. It doesn't.
No,
It doesn't tell
the
us.
Bible doesn't
probably
talk about
half of it.
giraffe. You know,
Right.
we
Well,
know the animals went on 2x2, but aardvark is not
I
in
mean,
the King James or any
right.
other version.
And when John is in the book of Revelation, he's trying to describe the things that he's seeing. He can tell he's fumbling over his words, trying to describe these creatures.
Mm-hmm.
And he's describing some of the seraphim or the cherubim.
Right.
But it also is possible that he's seeing entirely different creatures as well.
Yeah.
And that not all seraphim look exactly the same.
Yeah,
because
totally.
not all seraphim do.
Well, in fact, that is a super important aspect that you're mentioning, brother, about this whole phenomenon, and we'll just kind of we can include hybrids under the cryptids under the hybrid rubric, right?
Right.
It's so important to
possibly, or they could be God made too.
They could be. There could be I tend to, just for ease of
open
access,
to that possibility.
really just to communicate these ideas. And I'm right there with you. I'm not like sold one way. It doesn't matter to me. There's no skin in the game for me. It's just it is what it is. But we have to keep in mind that because we live in a spiritual reality, that these things can present themselves as iterations. In fact, that's exactly what they do, right? I just finished saying that Quetzalcoatl is an iteration of Enlil, is an iteration of, I could go on and on about how this God takes on a different form.
Hermes and Pan and all of these, I mean,
correct.
And Thoth and all of these gods. It's funny how a lot of them have the same exact symbols all across the world.
The same characteristics.
And then they have these same
and
buildings that the humans build because they were required of them all
like
over
those
the
interesting
world.
cigarettes.
And it's interesting that you bring that point up, because you were just saying this and I was thinking about it a while ago, but now it's even more relevant. So because God knows how we are, and the sons of God, and we didn't even get to that whole point, but just like the other Elohim, I'll just put it that way, they are also conscious of how we as humans work, right? And so if God tells us in his word that revelation is, how does he say it? That revelation is tailored essentially to your understanding of reality, right? He'll give you revelation in proportion. That's what it is. He'll give you revelation, correct, in proportion to your comprehension, right? So if that's true, and the sons of God clearly know that that's the way that they play things, they're gonna play at that too, at us as well. And so the level of deception, people they're
gonna mess with your head. They
take things for granted, right? That it's going to be a piece of cake. Oh, I won't be deceived. Oh, I won't be. I'm like, I don't think you get it, bro. I don't think you get it. These are things that are not even. They're not even.
And
within
that's why
the
it
realm
says
of
that if it were
possibility.
possible, the elect would be
Correct.
Because if you are
exactly
saved, you're
right.
truly saved. You're studying the Word of God, and you are actively looking into these things, and you're not going to be surprised. There's not one thing that's going to happen where it's going to be like, oh, well, that just proves that God's not real.
Right.
So, if anything, if you keep studying it, you're like, oh, well, that just proves that God is definitely real.
Right. Like all of this stuff has really boosted my faith, including the UFO stuff. Because for a long time, I just kind of either ignored it, or it was like, man, that kind of, if that's true, that proves I'm wrong. And then I'm like, hold on a second. Because honestly, like I've watched every single episode of Ancient Aliens, and that is not something I happily admit. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. I don't believe
I love it too.
Things.
Me too. I get it.
But here's the thing. I think a lot of what they have to say is true.
Yeah.
But
through
It's
wetlands,
truer than
right?
what most people, but through
twisted,
wetlands, exactly.
just a little
It's
smidge
it's
off center.
it's
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
not from some other planet. They're not
yeah.
coming here. They are they are the gods, right? They're the false
You know,
gods.
it goes back to that. Did God really say exactly
That's
what
another
it
thing.
is?
I asked Heiser this question because I got to ask him one question one time, and I asked, and I'm going to ask you guys the same question. Do you think that those gods, that those ancient false gods, do you think that they had physical interactions with their people?
Oh yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And here I'll give you one scripture reference that supports that. There are more, but I'm just going to give you this one. Ricky hears it all the time from me.
Well, as
good
a
old
follow-up,
King Nebuchadnezzar.
As a follow-up, do you also think that the depictions that these people made of them are how they presented to them, and then they just presented themselves as various different things to each group?
Definitely, like Nimrod, Enmar, Gilgamesh, all being the same. Yeah, 100%. But so go to the story of the 3 Hebrew boys real quick in your mind. We're going to assume that everybody remembers it.
Where is that in?
Daniel, right?
Book of Daniel
3,
2, maybe.
Nebuchadnezzar is actually writing it. Is that the one you're talking about?
No, where Nebuchadnezzar has
he chucks him in the fiery furnace.
Right. It is. It's the Hebrew boys in the fiery furnace.
His dream. The golden image? Okay, yeah.
So it might be So it might be 3. So 3 Hebrew boys.
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Decide we're not going to bow.
I think I know where you're going with this.
And so they get thrown into the fire, right? Too hot, so hot that the guys who throw them in die.
And who did they see with them in there?
Right. And what is the king say? How many did we throw in? 3, right? 3? Yeah. There's 4. And the 4th one looks like a god.
Or a son of the god, even. Or it says.
Right. Yeah. Either way.
Yeah.
The dude recognized him on sight. You know what? I can
and I know a lot of people look at this and they're like, well, it is Jesus in there. Ironically, he is
it
actually
doesn't matter. They
Jesus,
didn't see Jesus walking down the street.
But he didn't have any idea who Jesus was, or that the Hebrews had a concept of
that's this. Like I can say, hey, that's a Ducati, or oh, I like that Harley. I can look at a Harley and know what one is. I can look at a Ducati and I can.
B'nai Elohim in here, or if it's just Elohim. The forces. It says Bara Elah. It just says Bar Elah. So I guess son of God or God. I guess.
So yeah. To follow up on Shelley's answer, yes, I absolutely believe that there was. I mean,
because they talk about it so well. They talk about it so matter of factly. You know what? If Daniel had been telling that story and he had said, "I think it's a Ducati," you know, we'd be like, "They don't know what a Ducati is, man." Right. I know what a Ducati is because I'm a 21st century American who has a husband who rides bikes.
I was going to say, I hadn't even thought of this one until you were talking about it, but this makes sense to me. Do I think that they had interactions? My quick answer, yes. The example, Sodom and Gomorrah. How did they know what those dudes, why were they so interested in those guys? What like
sexually,
exactly what they wanted.
Because something was different about and that's another thing people don't realize. Like Sodom and Gomorrah, yes, it had to do some with homosexuality. It did, but that is not the primary. That's not the primary reason.
No,
Jude tells us this that it because they went after. It says they went after
strange
sexual
flesh.
Well, it names 2 things. It says sexual perversion and strange flesh. So it's not it's not saying the same thing twice. It's saying strange. The word strange flesh there is flesh that is not the same as yours, as in you are not of the same race. So could bestiality.
That's one of Ricky's favorite things to talk about. I mean,
we could talk about that for a long time, man.
Strange flesh.
Most
definitely we do. And every society talks
Mhm.
about interactions with the gods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every
You know, I was just, I
every
was literally
society.
just remembering when you said that, that another thing that Chief Joseph Riverwind was talking about with one of, no, I take it back. This is L.A. Marzulli. He was talking with Fritz Zimmerman, and they were talking about a book in the book about Comanches. Like it was an actual book
Oh
written
darn it!
by,
I didn't go and look that up.
so good, so good.
Sorry.
So he says that the chief in their tales, in their oral tradition, talks about a race of white men who were so well fortified, who were so rich, and who were so powerful that the white men that had come to them in the time that is now, that is in the modern contemporary time, was infinitesimally more weaker than them. Way, like way
Something was
substatus compared
vastly
to
different between
these
them. Yeah.
white, this white race that
Yeah.
existed. So to me, I mean, yes, we could say those are Nephilim. Sure, fine, okay, but I mean, they still have the semblance of the gods. I mean, you know, it's all one and the same. And to answer your other question, do I think that they were drawing images of, or making images of what they thought were gods, or what they knew to be gods? Excuse me. Yes, I do. And furthermore, I think that that's why we get different iterations of those images.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like I think that they were literally drawing what was revealed to them, right? I don't think it's that they had these difficulties drawing the same thing, or that they didn't have the proper technique to do so. I think that it was because we have to remember, right?
That is how
in
they
ancient
looked to
times,
them. That is how they
these
came.
were shared ideas, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, and it's
if
like
you
with the
had someone,
serpent
if
in
you
the
had
garden.
someone do an art piece for you, you had to have it commissioned. It was not like a small undertaking. This was a whole village to do this thing.
Well, and like the serpent in the garden, people get upset with me when I talk, when I start to bust down paradigms and beliefs that you've had your whole life.
That'll do it.
I love to do this because I know for me, I want to know if I'm wrong. I want to understand the Bible in the way that God wants me.
The truth matters way more than me being right.
And so,
in our pride,
I made a post that said that Jesus is not a literal lamb and Satan is not a literal serpent, right? John says that he is that old serpent, not that there was a possessed snake. Okay, and I can't stress this enough. It makes no sense that God punishes all snakes because one got possessed one time against its will.
Right.
That's so stupid, right? Okay, so we have this being that is referred to as a serpent, or it could even be like a dragon-like figure.
Oh, most definitely.
Serpentine. Okay, and then some of the first worshipped beings in Sumer, some of the first beings are these creatures that are like snake people.
Yeah.
they have like the lower body of humans, and then they have like snake heads, right? So they are actually worshiping these beings. This being, they're saying, look, we're worshiping exactly what you're describing here.
Yeah.
in Genesis 3. And so that's why I keep telling people, like, you've got to get rid of the children's book theology that we all have when it comes to these stories, because they are vastly superior when you read them like this. When you read them from this perspective that creature that was talking to Eve knows that snakes don't talk. She's not stupid, right? They existed for however long, and we don't know how long they were in the garden. I imagine it was for some time. It wasn't just immediately. I imagine they had to be there for a while.
Eve and Adam, they were part of the divine council. They sat on the divine council on the mountain of God with the rest of the divine council.
And they would have been able to see all of the things that we are incapable of seeing around us.
Right. All of those other dimensions.
I am convinced that when sin hit the world, we lost like
The
half
vision.
of the
Access
things
to
that we could even
dimensions.
see.
Absolutely.
We can't see
Yeah.
the infrared. We can't see. I mean, there's so many other things that we are incapable
Right.
of seeing
Yeah. Yep.
that they could see until
Yep.
sin, and so they actually were capable and did speak
Yep.
to these other beings.
Yep.
And we see the Satan character falling in this moment. This is his fall. There's no pre-incarnate Satan where there's a before Adam he falls. This is when he falls. Now there may be some things that kind of led up to it. He gets pissed off because God wants he made us, and Satan didn't like that because he's like, look how awesome I am. And so then he gets pissed off, but it probably wasn't a big to do. He was just like, he came up with this plan, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna because he hears God tell Adam not to eat from the tree, but he doesn't hear him say it to Eve.
Yeah.
So Eve gets that second hand through Adam. That's why he goes to Eve.
That's
and it even says, it even says that Adam was not deceived in Hebrew.
Right.
Eve was.
And was a traitor.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's also, I've heard it put this way, and I'm not putting any stock in this, but it's also, you could also look at it as one of the first love stories, right? Because however long they were in the Garden of Eden together, they were in there alone together, the only humans. They had nothing to do but to spend time with each other in paradise, right? The amount of love that you can have for somebody grows quite quickly. And as soon as Eve does this, as soon as Eve eats this, he doesn't want to live without her. And so he does it himself. Now, I don't put any stock in that. I think that's an interesting take. I think it's just as possible as anything else.
Story that I told an hour ago.
Yep, it sure is.
And he fell in love with her.
Right. And it was stupid.
Oh
my gosh, he shouldn't have done it regardless. He shouldn't have done it regardless.
It's super important that you're mentioning about, like we have such a mental disconnect with this whole but it was just Adam and Eve and they didn't know anyone else, and this whole weird, mysterious idea that we have about it. When in reality, we're all
just by themselves. And that was it.
Yeah, no, but even more so, we're all family.
Yeah,
we're family,
yeah.
Right? We are waiting to be revealed to the sons of glory, and for them to be revealed to us. That is the whole.
And they weren't in the Garden of Eden the whole time. They would go to the Garden of Eden every day to attend it. They lived outside of the Garden of Eden. The whole world wasn't Eden, right?
Yes.
The Garden of Eden is a specific place.
They had to
it was the meeting place between God and man, just like when man tried to make their own meeting place.
It was
with
their
Babel.
And that's the whole point of the Bible, is to bring us back to Eden, to where we don't have that separation anymore. That's the whole that ties all of this together. That is the reason why God gets super pissed off about the angels, because that was immediately attacking his plan to bring us back to Eden. Every single time that stuff happened, it was one more chance that somebody was going to screw this up to where we couldn't get back to Eden with him. And he wanted so desperately for us to be able to do that, that he loved us so much that he drowned the entire earth, because he wanted to make sure that the Messiah was able to come, so we could commune with him personally. We could actually be with him and experience him in a way that we were meant to be. And I know people that I used to think the idea of heaven was boring. But first of all, we live on a new earth, right? That means he's going to bring back freaking dinosaurs, and he's going to create a whole new cosmos. And I am fully convinced. I don't have any scripture for this, but you could not tell me otherwise, that we are going to be able to explore that new cosmos.
Of course, I look forward to that. It's
going to be actual freaking Star Trek.
It's absolutely because
it's gonna be
that's Big Brother tech. We're gonna get access to Big Brother tech on the regular. We're gonna be able to
work right.
Exactly.
And we will be
gonna work right. I'm so excited about the new Earth internet.
Yes. And so I'm so excited about that. So just for the last topic that I want to kind of talk about is more modern Nephilim stuff, okay? Because like I know that there's the story of
we've
the
talked about
military
UFOs a
groups,
little bit.
right? But there's the story of the Kandahar giant.
Right.
There's that story. There's other stories that I've heard, but also because a lot of people don't realize, like the Native Americans talk about
Absolutely.
these red-haired giants that they were terrified of, and how the only way that they could ever kill them was to trap them in a cave and set a fire in it and kill them. And so they were terrified of these things. And so what people don't realize is, like, this is why God said get rid of every single one of them, because some of them were able to leave when they didn't.
They're going to branch out.
They continue. They actually were able to leave because they didn't kill every single time. They didn't listen to God. Some of them left.
Yeah.
And some of them went as far as they could possibly go, and they made it all the way to the Americas.
Yeah. And I'm sure there are still some. I think they're kind of fewish and far between, because they do a pretty good job of not being seen anyhow. Although Tim Alberino,
if you go on TikTok long enough, you'll find people that swear they
right.
They
well, my
like a
favorite
door.
I see stuff like that all the time. My algorithms are definitely, they know that the giants are on my radar.
And I watch that crap, but it's just trash.
Most of it, nothing looks super convincing. Although the door down in the bottom of the Grand Canyon, there's something there.
There's some weird stuff with the guy that supposedly went down into like a cavern or something like that, and he ended up finding like a long city after walking miles.
Yeah,
I don't remember his name.
There's interesting stuff.
And there's Egyptian artifacts down there, and but
in
there was
Utah, isn't that one down under Utah or Alabama? No, Arkansas,
Ohio.
There was a show called America.
No, that's Serpent Mounds in Ohio.
Well, there's a show called America
in Arkansas.
And they it got canceled after this episode. No. This is a different one. We'll talk about that one too. But it's called America Unearthed. And they talked about the Egyptian artifacts in the Grand Canyon and stuff. They were canceled after this episode, and black helicopters showed up whenever they went. I mean, on freaking every time people have said all of this stuff happened. I know you can make all this stuff, but it was odd that they got canceled.
Right.
And then there's the Searching for Giants History Channel episode or season that had one
you're
season.
Right. That's the one I was thinking of.
The one season with the two brothers, and the very last up, they found a giant tomb, and the very last episode was supposed to be that they were going to dig it up, and then they never aired that final episode and canceled the show and said that it was because nobody was watching it, and a lot of people were freaking watching it because they went from Ancient Aliens to that, and millions of people watch Ancient Aliens.
As you do.
Geez.
It's amazing what the History Channel has become. But I just found that kind of stuff is interesting. But also, people don't realize, if you go and you search up on the internet, you go to you can just search it up on Google, but you can actually go to any newspaper like archiving place, and you search up giant human skeletons. You will find, in the early 1800s, all the way up until a certain event happens around 1930, 1940, you will find all of these people having findings of giant skeletons. Some of them having double rows of teeth.
Yep.
And some of these are, and they find hundreds of them piled together. And they say that they're 10, 12, 13, and something like 14 feet tall.
Wow.
And there was one that said that the head was like this freaking big. Okay. And these people, they're not stupid people. Okay. And this is like the New York Times that is saying these things. The New York Times has articles talking about these, and they'll say, "Oh, well, this was just them finding a mastodon skull, and they were just misinterpreting it." And these people are like, "No, nope, that's not true. I know what a mastodon looks like. This is not that." Right, and they are finding hundreds and hundreds of these. This is why I said the Smithsonian has the bones, because here's the thing. The moment that evolution gets started being taught in schools, these stories disappear.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can't hear about them again, right? Because in all of, I mean, Abraham Lincoln literally talks about the giants that used to roam this land. It's a quote from Abraham Lincoln. It says the giants used to roam this land. I'll have to look up what speech it was, but he absolutely says that. And like, this is just something that everybody knew.
Good old Paul Bunyan.
Right.
There's
and his big blue ox.
Yep, and big blue ox, babe.
Yep.
So one of the things that was always interesting to me about eschatology is the getting modern Americans to worship something. It seems so far-fetched. Americans don't bow down before nothing.
But something is going to be different about this because it says he brings life to the image of the beast. And I think that's some sort of artificial intelligence stuff going on there.
That's where I would go. I really have to think, and I have really believed since I was a pre-teenager that the Antichrist would get his power from aliens.
Yeah.
That is why the whole world
and he will have actual power. People don't realize this. Like these beings, they have power. Go and read Exodus about the magicians, Janus and Jambres, and they have actual magic that they do. It says that they do it by their dark arts. Not that they faked it like in the Prince of Egypt and they sprinkled the little thing that made it look like blood. No, they turned it into blood.
That's why God doesn't give us commands not to do something that cannot be done.
Yeah. Exactly.
When he tells us don't
do
play
necromancy,
with
don't
don't summon the dead. Guess what? I guess that means the dead can be summoned because that witch of Endor, she was shook to her core. Why did you have me actually conjure up Samuel?
Yep. Oh, absolutely. Another thing on the Exodus thing that I just found out recently, because one of my followers pointed it out, is when Moses throws the staff onto the ground, or Aaron throws the staff onto the ground, the word that it says that it turns into is not nakash or serpent. It turns into tanin, which is the biblical word for a dragon or a dinosaur. And so they had a freaking Pokemon dragon fight. That makes it so much cooler.
Gotta catch them all.
I need for them to do a remake of Prince of Egypt and make it a dragon instead.
I choose you, Pikachu.
Yes. I mean, he told me that, and I didn't believe him, and I went and looked, and you can ask my wife. I was just like, I came in, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing ever. Because I've looked up Tanin before, and I highlighted all of it in my Bible app, and I never saw that one. And I don't know why, because I had just taught on dinosaurs like a week before that, and I was like, and I missed this.
You'll learn that this happens every time, dude. As soon as you finally release an episode, like you start getting all this information. You're like, well, I freaking wish I would have known that for this episode. That always happens.
You're gonna have to make another one at some point. Yeah.
Right. We're gonna go in more in depth. Absolutely.
So it kind of brings us into one more thing, and this is the topic that some people, as soon as you hear it, you're gonna just roll your eyes, you're gonna turn it off. This is the topic of alien abduction, and this topic is not you guys. I know you guys are. We're tracking. We've been going for almost 3 hours nonstop.
We're tracking.
And I could go for 3 more, but we're going to end it here in just a few minutes because I got to start my
already your midnight times, guys.
Yeah.
I'm good. I usually only sleep like 3 or 4 hours a night anyway. So
oh no, I can't do that. Sorry, I'm gonna have to bail earlier.
Yeah, no. We're gonna wrap it up here in just a second. I just want to kind of talk about the UFO alien kind of alien abduction phenomenon. Because I don't think that it's aliens coming from outer space to take things. I think I made that clear. I know you guys don't think that.
Nope.
But they are creating when a lot of these people will say that there is a sexual component to this.
Absolutely.
That some ladies have said that they have found out that they were pregnant, they get abducted, and then that baby is gone.
Yep.
And I mean, some really strange freaking things. Go listen to Blurry Creatures podcast. If you haven't listened, they go into this kind of stuff. I'm not going to go super. It is very, very, very interesting. And there's a lot of hoaxy, weird kind of stuff out there.
Sure.
But like I said, it only takes one to be telling the truth. And
Right.
I'll tell you, I had a sleep paralysis experience that can only be described as something that where I was almost abducted. because and it's the reason why me and my wife are back together, because we had broken up, and I was living in my apartment and I'd fallen asleep on the couch. And I'd had like some minor sleep paralysis where I just woke up and I couldn't move, but this is the first time I saw stuff. And I fell asleep on my couch, and I wake up and I'm fully awake. I know I'm wide awake. I am like, and it's scaring crap of me because I'm just only able to breathe. Right? I'm struggling just to breathe because it's just. I mean, it's terrifying. I don't know if you ever had sleep paralysis. It's the scariest experience ever.
I've had it before.
But I look up and I see 3 of these beings over me, and they've got like this bulbous heads, but they kind of look like their bodies are made of static, right? Like on the TV, like old TV, when you turn it on, there's nothing there. It's the old static. It looked like that, but it had like the outline of the alien looking gray kind of thing. And they were looking over me from the back of my couch, looking over me. And they just kind of motion.
Creepy.
And I start lifting up off of my couch. And I had actually watched a I'd heard, I hadn't watched the documentary this one, but I had heard people talking about if you say Jesus, it ends. And so I could barely breathe. I couldn't even open my mouth. So I was like this. And all I could say was Jeebus, right? Because I couldn't even open my mouth. So it sounded like Jeebus. And I immediately fell to the ground. Immediately fell to the ground. And I mean, when I tell you I freaked out and panicked, I called my wife. Now we were broken up, and I was like, "Please come over here now." And we've been back together ever since then. So I think that the alien abductions for and there was no spaceship involved in that, right? There was no ship involved. I don't know where they were planning on taking me, but that, I mean, when I dropped like this far. It wasn't just like a tiny little fall. It was like I fell and rolled off the couch, and I was just like, oh my God. And then I watched this documentary called The Nightmare after this, and it's a documentary I highly recommend. It's on sleep paralysis, and it is amazing. And in it, it describes some of the exact things that happened to me happening to other people. I believe it. And there's even the story of this guy in there who was an atheist who became a Christian because the only thing that stopped his sleep paralysis was the name of Jesus.
Don't be calling it Buddha if you're going to get sucked up into a starship, bro.
And it was
not unless you want to keep going.
And so I say that to say, I think Nephilim now are definitely not giants anymore.
No, now their iteration is alien.
So it has been more of an experiment to try to figure out how to make this work over the span of thousands. You've had plenty of time to try it out, and like before 100 years ago, who were people going to tell?
Right. Tell your tiny little village.
Right. Tell your village, make a drawing, and that's about it.
So I think, man, this is a big old can of worms, dude. I'm going to try and keep it as brief as I can.
I know. I just opened up a big topic. But
yeah, it's humongous. People always ask us about this. What are aliens? I'm like, that's a stupidly large topic, so I'm going to
They're not all demons.
No, they're not.
No, they're not all demons. They are demonic, but they are not all demons.
So I think that a lot of aliens are host bodies or avatars for demons, which are
I just think
I've heard that before. Something, and that's why they're expressionless and they don't.
17th generation or so.
I think they can also be. I think that they can also literally just be more iterations of Nephilimic and hybrid type,
like a biological robot kind of.
Yes.
Thing,
well, then there's also that. That's also another
too.
one. There's also robots. There is also, I think
kind of like they want to do with injecting our consciousness into into other beings. It's the same kind of thing, and that's how they're going to kind of help us do that.
And I think that all of that kind of stuff also is going to be like, I think just like we're talking about how this is so weird, right? Like there's so many aspects of it. I think that the Great Deception will probably play out along those lines. It'll probably be a series of things that you can do to adjust your body to be qualified, just like a vaccine passport, same kind of idea, right? As long as you got one that's kind of works with the rest of them, you'll be compatible. You'll be able to keep going.
Well, and I think that's why they're playing with mRNA so strongly because it honestly is a mobile form of CRISPR. We're going to go ahead and splice and dice that DNA, and you're going to.
I already told my job under no circumstances am I getting that vaccine. So if you try to make me, I'm not.
To quote Elon Musk, with the right amount of injections, you can turn you into a freaking butterfly. So there's that.
Right. Well, and probably literally at some point fairly soon.
Yeah. No, I mean that. I mean that very literally. So to answer your question. It is highly convoluted, and people have to come to terms with the fact that things don't fit in boxes, and you have to be okay with that, and you have to seek the Lord for clarity on things. Like
just like you can't just say all the angels are supernatural, so they can't do. They're spiritual, so they can't do X.
Right.
Oh, and I was even going to say, bro, like. I think that some of the alien phenomena is probably the high-level sons of God themselves showing up in ships and doing the stuff that they need to take care of stuff that they got to.
I also think that the good guys have ships.
I agree. I also think that.
Agreement.
And so I don't think that every single thing that we see up in the sky. No, I don't think that.
So when Daniel's friend came to him and said, "Dude, I left. I came to you the day you started praying, but the Prince of Persia engaged me in warfare, and I couldn't get away until Michael came and engaged him so that I could get to you."
Weird passage. I love it.
It makes so much sense. It makes so much sense.
If you put that, if you in your brain think of that in, gosh, I'm going to so date myself. But in Battlestar Galactica,
it's a good show.
Like I just see the Cylons and the humans in their little ships. And
I'm just thinking of the Goa'uld. How do you say that? You've never seen
the Goa'uld.
Goa'uld, yeah.
The Goa'uld,
Same kind of concept. Possessors of the Body.
Stargate.
So
Stargate.
Stargate.
Yeah,
there you go.
Stargate.
I watched all
love
10 of
that
those
series.
seasons, like back to back, because I never watched it as a kid.
So good.
And I always thought
I
it was
always watched it
stupid
as a
and
kid.
nerdy, and then I was like,
Oh, it's
"This is
so
the best
good.
freaking show
Oh,
ever."
I'm nerdy, so
They're trying to bring
I
it back,
enjoy-
but they're probably going to make it like pansexual.
Yeah,
Oh,
stupid
God, I'm
nonsense.
sure they will. But the whole, like, Stargate gave it all away.
Mhm.
Oh, look,
Oh yeah.
between the
Oh, I
pyramid
loved
and the
it. I
ancient
loved it
things,
because I was like, "Oh
and
yeah,
oh,
this
look,
makes complete
there are
sense."
the ancient gods. Here they are. Oh, full circle iteration. Like, I completely.
Except
Here's
that they don't really have to
here's
use stargates to get where they needed to go. I mean, the
may,
sons of God.
maybe not. So you have talked
Mhm.
about CERN, and I think that what CERN is really doing is trying to open gates between dimensions so that
Mhm.
Tartarus can be
Yeah.
opened, so that
Well,
Apollyon
well, and
and
that
his group can
reminds
get
me
out.
because in Revelation, I think it's 13. I'm not sure. 13:8 maybe. That could be completely wrong. It talks about the Euphrates River drying up. And
Right,
these beings being released.
right,
And it is
Yep.
talking
right.
about these sons of God being released at
Right.
that time
These
to
are
wreak
the
havoc.
ones
This is when you
who
start
are
to
in
see
the gloomy darkness.
creepy locusts.
Yep.
Right? When you see the bottomless pit opened up and these things come out, this is them.
Yep.
They aren't. It's not Apache attack helicopters. It is these actual creepy as hell beings that God has released, and they can't attack us. They're not allowed.
No,
to.
because we're sealed.
Right.
But they can attack.
That
attack
is
everyone else.
pretty late in the game. Which
I think we're gone at that point. But that's the point where they are wanting to die and are incapable of. And I sure would want to die at that time because that is horrible. But that is the whole entire story of the Bible from Genesis 6 all the way to that moment. This is why we've been talking about this for 3 hours now, because and we're just scratching the very
There's a ton of stuff I would have wanted to talk about. We literally didn't even break down who the sons of God are, who the Watchers are, who the Elohim are, who the Nephilim actually are, who the demons are.
That's why I say, like, I wanted to do a thorough episode that covers everything, like as much, like a whole wide range of everything, but there is so much more to this.
Too much stuff.
Well, I mean, I think we've done a pretty good job of going over the basics of every part of it almost. I mean, you could, from what we've talked about today, you could find everything else out if you know what to look for.
Sure.
Right.
So
no, we did a good job in 3 hours what Ricky and I took 2023 to do.
Pretty much.
See, and I challenge people not to just believe the things that we have to say. Go and do it yourself.
Go check them out, man.
Look at Genesis 6. Go look at Genesis 6, and then go read Job 1 and tell me you don't know who the sons of God are. They absolutely are the same, right?
Yeah.
The term is only ever used of these beings. All right, and this is the whole idea that we can only, like, I love people. It's funny, or it's common for people to say we're all just children of God. No, we're not. We are not all children of God. We're not sons and daughters of God. No. None of us are until
Jesus gave us the right to become.
We can
praise the Lord.
Adopted as the sons of God to replace those. And this is why it says that we will judge angels.
Right.
Right. It says that we will judge it. And honestly, in Genesis 6, if you go and you read Genesis 6 in the Septuagint, which is the Greek version of the Old Testament, which is about 300 years BC that it was created, it actually uses the Greek word angelos, which is angels in place of sons of God.
So this
is Right, and that's a whole nother discussion. But
That's a whole.
yeah, what someone's saying, like there is so much to this, and we're going to break all of this up and put a bunch of clips out over the next. I'm going to work on it this weekend and kind of cut up a bunch of stuff because I got this new job that I'm doing. I may do some a little bit here and there every night because I'm excited to get this out. But I really. I'm really thankful that you guys came on today. I cannot thank you enough. This has been so therapeutic for me because I honestly I don't have a whole lot of people that want to talk about this stuff.
We get it.
I'm trying to
totally
proselytize that. I mean,
That's
but
what, we're on the same road.
Right. When I taught about it at church, it's hit or miss if people are going to actually like it or not. And the ones that do love it.
1 out of 20. Right.
Right. But I mean, they were so disinterested in it, and I was just like, "Are you kidding me? This is the Bible.
This is so
this tells the story of God has a family. It's the whole Bible.
Yep.
God has a family.
Yep.
God has a family. A lot of them betray him. 3 times. 3 times he gets betrayed. Most people don't realize that either. There's Satan, there's the fallen sons of God, and then there's the Genesis 6 angels. There's 3 different times that he gets betrayed by his family.
And then there's humanity.
Right. And that doesn't even include us screwing him over. Right?
Yep.
Right.
And so he gets screwed, but he wants for us to be reunited to him. So the whole Old Testament is him protecting the Israelites through all of this, through all of these things, all this craziness.
Yeah.
So he can get to where he can say, okay, the Messiah can come now. And when the Messiah comes, then he starts dismantling all of the things that these other beings did, all of the ancient gods. He's still dismantling that to this day. But notice, where are the Greek gods now? Where are they?
They're on spaceships. They're little green men.
They still exist.
Oh yeah.
And I loved in Stargate how the Thor was a gray alien behind the scenes.
Yeah, he sure was.
I mean,
sure was.
But unironically and real life, please. Right? That's
not giving this a plug because it's very debauched. But American Gods.
You were talking about that.
Really, like
I wanted to watch that, but I saw there's just a bunch of
dark. There's a lot of stuff on it that is just
there's a lot of nudity stuff.
There's plenty, but their premise is that these old gods have new iterations, and it's very. I couldn't finish. I think even the first season because it is very unwholesome.
If you like that. There's an author whose name is Brom, okay, Brom, and he wrote this book called Lost Gods, and that is my absolute favorite fictional book ever. It is a story about a man who gets killed and sent to the underworld where all of the old gods who are no longer worshipped still reign, and he has to break out of there to help his girlfriend who is pregnant, who's being like it's just this whole huge thing. It is the most awesome freaking story. I love that because it talks about all of these old gods and all. I love that kind of stuff. It is so intricate and so freaking cool, dude. I'll probably read it again because I love that book.
Okay, so not intricate, but in the same vein is the Percy Jackson series, which is geared for kids, kind of.
Hey, I love anything that has to do with this kind of stuff. I love it.
But the way the gods still survive in the modern world is very interesting. Yeah. You know, Olympus has moved. It is now in San Francisco, you know, and also in New York City and the top of what's that really tall
Empire State Building?
Empire State Building. Yeah. But it's interesting and that's really one of the things Derek Gilbert and his crew like to talk about in A View from the Bunker.
Iron and Myth.
Iron and Myth. they'll bring up all of these ways where they're showing their hand. They're showing their hand so
Right,
frequently
because there's a
in
lot of
our
glimpses of truth throughout all of
entertainment.
it. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
so
Yeah.
much.
I mean,
Hollywood
they have
is
this
like,
knack
here
of
it
telling
is.
exactly what their hand is before they do all of these things,
Yeah.
because they're arrogant.
Well, not only are they arrogant,
Isn't that what every bad guy does? And
certainly
Reveals their
but
plans
the
beforehand.
programming is necessary, right? I mean, the
Yeah.
programming is necessary because we need to
Right.
be primed. If we're
Mhm.
not primed, we won't accept it. Like, we'll
Right.
just
If
reject
TV
it out of hand.
if TV didn't exist, there'd be a lot of less problems with all this.
You know,
kind of stuff.
TV didn't
played in a-
exist, none of us would care about aliens.
I played in a band back in the day, man, and when I was in high school called the Remedials, and it was there was a song. I mean, the whole thing was media, and it was an acronym for annihilate, edifying, destruction, inflicted on all, is what it meant. But the whole premise was that precisely, right? Like, if you lend ear to the media, you lend ear to all sorts of weird ideas, concepts, other ways of following. You're a moron. You're a moron.
That is.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you watch these
And
Grammys
no red
or you watch
flag
Taylor
went up.
Swift concerts, and they are just literally worshiping the devil. They just are.
Yeah,
I mean, I always laugh because it's like people used to say that metal was like of the devil, and now like pop music is actually of the devil, and all the old metalheads are coming to Christ.
Did you see that? Did you see that meme that I posted a while back, dude? It was Taylor Swift, and she was holding a martini or something. She's kind of like looking in the distance, and it just says that moment when you realize that you're the pop version of selling your soul to the devil for rock and roll.
Yeah. I mean, they all.
The sad thing is
that's a whole
just so
nother
much truth.
rabbit trail that I'm gonna go down at some point, because like Beyonce, she literally says that a being called Sasha Fierce takes over her every time she performs. That's not my words. That's her words to Oprah.
Whoa.
Yeah, she go type in Beyonce and Sasha Fierce, and you will find some creepy stuff.
Beyonce
because
what?
She's Sasha Fierce, Fierce. Yeah, and it's creepy stuff. I mean, she talks about how this thing takes over her, and she's like a really meek and mild and timid person in these interviews, and then she gets on stage, she's completely different, right? She's this bold and creepy and sexual, kind of doing all this stuff, and and her husband, they're all Illuminati scum anyways, which I don't believe Illuminati in that sense. But I do believe that there's some real stuff going on with all.
Yeah, these guys, I think, are doing some sort of play acting, but it's enough real.
They believe in it. So
yeah,
it's enough real that without Christ,
yeah,
and it's terrifying because our kids are all in this world under this stuff, and it is shoved down their throats, and I mean it is it's completely terrifying.
Sure
because if you just listen to Taylor Swift or any of these, it sounds so benign, and so I mean that's why like with metal they were like, oh, it just sounds evil, and now like metal is like, we will storm the gates of hell and we will tear it to the ground, and then pop music is like, we're selling our soul to the devil.
Right. Run, better run, outrun my bullets, and everybody's just jamming along. It's so much fun, and then you realize, yep. You know what though? Beware the ones who are in cheerleading outfits and looking sweet. I'll take the golf girl any day.
Never a problem for me.
Yeah.
No, me neither. And I'm still a little bit prejudiced. I'm not gonna lie. If you look torn and tattered, I probably am gonna
want to talk to you.
Towards you.
Yeah. I will trust in you before I believe in the clean shaven, nicely sewn up.
That's why I grew my beard back out.
Yeah, get to it, 12-year-old.
I know.
Yeah. Yep. So, all right, guys. Well, we can kind of wrap it up because it's almost 1 o'clock in the morning here now. I'm so excited about this interview, man. It's been,
man.
it's
This
been
was
so
so good.
awesome. Really hasn't been an interview. It's just been a conversation about awesome stuff. And this
Right.
has really been some exactly what I've been needing for a while, man. I'm going through
Good,
a lot
man.
in my life right now, but I love this kind of stuff. I could talk to you guys for just 40 more hours straight and then without skipping a beat. And
That's how
it's
it
amazing
feels.
how we're able to just
We'll
keep
get
talking.
together
And
anytime,
man.
Clayton.
we kind of
Anytime you
pre-planned a
want.
little bit, but we didn't really go according to that script. I didn't have a script today. I just started talking.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
And that's why like this topic is one that I am so sure that I could talk about for forever.
Right.
And honestly,
we
every year I'm
walk
going
the
to
same
have
road.
a Nephilim month where I talk about this topic. I am. I mean, and it's going to be February. It's going to be my Nephilim month where I talk about this stuff because it is that important.
Nephilim History Month.
I was just going to say that crap.
There you
I was
go.
just going to say
Nephilim
that.
History Month. I'm going to do it. That is perfect, and I'm stealing that idea. That's freaking awesome.
All yours.
Because I don't want to just talk about this topic on my podcast because I want people to. This is how you can understand the Old Testament. But my main goal is to help people understand the Bible as a whole. Now, this helps you understand a basis for this. This helps answer some really tough questions about the Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
Once I've figured this out,
right.
But even like the really uncomfortable stuff,
yeah,
like
now
the
your Bible
genocide
makes
stuff.
sense.
God is a genocidal maniac, and nope, God was actually doing that so we could have a Messiah.
Yeah,
and so so I mean that's the entire reason for it. And now, it's tough because you like if it's not that kind of questioning isn't going to work for an atheist. Like if you tell them that, oh, that's just it's because he's killing the Nephilim. They've never even heard it. I guarantee you. But now they're most Christians, and because I had I was in my parents' class, Sunday school class, like last year. And they were teaching on this topic, and the guy they were talking about the genocide stuff, and they're reading about it. God says, "Kill every man, woman, and child," and he's like sobbing, he's like crying, and he's just like, I find this so hard. I just don't understand how God can do this. And I'm just like, and I talked to him afterwards, and I told him, I said, look, this is not what it seems. You've got to
let me give you this key.
Let me tell you this. And
soon.
But here's the problem: it just glossy-eyed because they just have no clue because no one ever talks about this in the church, and that is a shame. That is a damn shame. Because this is so important.
That's been,
you know what?
That's been the enemy knew. Podcast,
that's how he neuters us.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's been the whole purpose of this podcast is to talk about stuff that people in the church are unwilling to talk about. Because if they're not going to talk about it in the four walls, we're going to talk about it outside the four walls. And
well, and I always tell people like if you don't want your kids talking about this stuff or questioning God or all that, they're going to do it anyways. You just should rather have them be answered from somebody who has the same faith in them rather than a professor whose goal is to make them stop believing in God.
Absolutely.
I mean, I teach apologetics at a youth church camp every year. And I'm telling you, man, I tell them I'll be here for a couple of days and you can just come up to me and you can ask me any question that you want and I will answer it. And I never have a moment alone whenever I do that, like the entire time that I'm there, because somebody is always there asking me because no one is answering their questions. And that breaks my heart because that's why I left the church.
You know what it is?
I left my youth group.
I mean, that's why I frankly struggled for years to understand why the Bible was even relevant. I was just like, it just doesn't seem, why do all these other religions have all these powers and the Bible that I know is true should have all this power and I don't see it. But what I was going to say is, I think a lot of
all the demons are still active, but the Holy Spirit stopped working in people.
Right. According to the
a lot of what we're seeing
anyway.
Is, oh my gosh, that people in culture are clinging to the vestiges of the Western culture, and they don't know they're grappling with what it means to be a Christian and what it like. They don't understand that Christian and suffering are hand in hand a lot of times, and so because they don't
That's the only
understand
thing
that,
Jesus guarantees is you will have tribulation, and the
Right.
American church
Absolutely.
Thank you.
that's not really
Thank
had that
you.
very much.
absolutely. That's why
But
I
at
don't
the end,
actually.
we win.
That's actually why I don't believe that we're going to be taken out of the tribulation. I don't think that we're going to suffer
The
like
word
the ones that are
tribulation
sealed.
is have to people who have faith. Like that's what that word means, is to be
Yeah.
attacked for your faith.
Right.
Right.
And
Which
if
is
the
why I'm
church is
saying
gone, there's no
I don't-
tribulation saints that
correct.
Right.
I don't see how we can believe that and Shelly already knows, like, I can beat this horse until it's dead and then revive it and kill it again. That I don't know how we think that people in the very early church martyred, were beheaded, were sawed in half, and then we're like, oh, we're just gonna
We're
skip out
not
on that part.
destined for
No,
wrath.
no, that's
and
not.
not even the early church. Most of the rest of the world, and their
Right.
Yeah.
brothers and sisters around the world.
To date,
we get to
right?
get out of it, but they get screwed. Why? Why?
Right.
Because we live in
Because
America.
somehow I American am more holy than Peter.
But there is neither Jew nor Greek nor American in Christ. This is, and that's why, like, I hate it when churches do like patriotic stuff. Like, I used to be like, oh, gung ho patriotism, all this kind of stuff. I've moved away from that stuff because it's an idol.
It can
can
be,
be.
yeah.
It
It
can be.
definitely can
and you
be.
can do it
Your
anyway.
your
It's
salvation
okay
is
to-
not in your political party.
Right.
Right.
It's okay to be proud of your country and to enjoy living in it. But whenever you decide that for some reason you get to get away from all of the problems that the rest of the world has because you're in America. No, God bless America. No, God is about to be done blessing America.
Well, this is
and that's
blessed
when
is the nation
second
whose
solar
God is
eclipse.
the Lord, but our nation's God is not the Lord.
Yeah, well, and honestly, I'm not big into like the signs of the heavens kind of stuff, but this solar eclipse that's formed an X over the United States has got me a bit nervous. The one that 7 years ago there was another one. I know.
We're going to that conference.
We're going to that. We're very
excited. See, honestly, that kind of freaks me out a little bit, and I don't know why, but it really kind of.
I didn't even realize that it was about that. I was more excited about going to listen
people
to.
that were talking. Yeah.
And then 7 years later, another one happens, and it forms a giant X. If you go to the middle of that X, there it goes to a town called Salem, which is Jerusalem. That's just freaking weird. Okay, I don't put a bunch of stock in it. I'm not.
Well, we're just going to Dallas.
My old
but
I'll meet you guys there then, man, because I'm just south of Fort Worth, because that sounds freaking awesome.
Cool. We'll hang out
because that it really it makes me think that something bad's going to happen in the United States. It just really does, because like the sign of Jonah. That's what it was. It was a solar eclipse that happened to them. There was a solar eclipse that happened during World War I think it was, that they had a great solar eclipse at the beginning of it that freaked everybody out. Yeah, dude, look at all the weird stuff that solar eclipses happen around. Oh my goodness, dude! It doesn't mean that this is going to happen immediately. I mean, Jesus, the solar eclipse that lasted for hours, right?
Right.
So. I mean, God literally said that He put these lights in the sky for time for appointed times is what the actual Hebrew means, and so it could nothing happen. I wasn't into all the blood moon stuff and all. I wasn't into, but this one's kind of like that's a little weird. I mean, that's a big X just like over the U.S. It makes me think that, and right in the middle of one of the most contentious elections that's ever happened or ever will happen. And no matter who wins, the country's going to destroy itself.
Yeah, there's somebody was saying something about a
I expect
prophecy that when the
something
Chiefs
big to happen
win,
this year.
so
Yeah.
I guess we'll
I
see something
expect
about
some
45 and 47.
Yeah, I expect some shenanigans to happen because this is an election year. Some
Oh, you
big
should definitely
shenanigans. Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
well,
kind
yeah.
of like the. I mean, it's almost like in the last election there were some shenanigans going on with the Wu flu and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see what fun little dogs and ponies they trot out for us next.
Yeah, with the actual dementia patient that they've now admitted is an actual dementia patient from the freaking special counsel.
We're not going to prosecute him because
we're not a
people
serious country.
feel
Like,
bad
that's it.
about
We're not.
him.
We're not a serious country anymore.
No, we're not.
And God sends terrible leaders to punish a nation.
Certainly.
Yes, he does.
That's what he's done.
But he also, I think too, last point, going back to eschatology, but people are going to be very excited for the Antichrist because all these
things are going to be
buffoons
bad
who are ruling us are so bad that you're like, please give us somebody who's not
they're
a geriatric
all like 900
nitwit.
years old and literally stop in the middle of their sentences because their brain stops working in the middle of it.
Or they're so corrupt, or they're so corrupt that you're just like, how can you be that
Because they
corrupt
sold
and
their
think I
souls because
can't
they were all on
tell?
the Epstein Island and all that kind of stuff. So
No,
real quick,
they
we're going to
were.
end real quick. I just want to ask you about eschatology. Just take a couple seconds. How far away do you think actual serious biblical eschatology stuff is going to happen? How far away do you think we are?
When you say serious, what do you mean?
I mean, the Book of Revelation actually starting to come true.
I think we are in the prelude.
Yeah, I think we're already. I mean, I think
how long do you think that lasts? I mean, like, when would you? I'm not asking you to set a date, but
I think like
5
really
years
seriously
or 30
in the next
years or...
in the next definitely in the next 50 years, but probably sooner than that.
Yeah.
See, I'm thinking
the rider on the
30 years.
The rider on the white horse
Yeah.
could be, well, and you know what? And I know there's contention in this, but when Jesus said, I will not always contend with man, his day shall be 120 years. I know that it was a not yet and also done.
Yeah.
But 120 years from the time that Israel became a nation again was, it became a nation in 1948, so that'd be 2068.
Yeah. See, I heard this one guy, and it was actually kind of compelling because he said that he thought that Adam and Eve were on the earth or were in Eden and all of that before the fall. It was about 33 years, and the reason I said that is because we're almost at like 6,000 years. We're over 6,000 years from the creation by it's 6,008 or 6,010, something like that, from the traditional time creation. And the reason that it's not stopping at 6,000 is because of those 33 years was when Jesus was on the earth. And Jesus was on the earth for 33 years because Adam and Eve were in the garden for the 33 years. And so that, I think that's interesting. I'm not going to put any stock in it.
It is interesting.
Which means that it would be sometime around 2040, but that also coincides with when Elon Musk says they will be capable of doing the actual Neuralink downloading of the consciousness. That's when he plans to be done with that, to be able to do that.
I think it'll happen sooner. I think for mass production, it will probably be
maybe so. Around that time. The rich and the famous people will have it first, obviously, and they will get it.
You guys go ahead and hive mind all you want. I'm good, thanks.
Yeah, that's super creepy.
Somebody
Apple
send
Vision
along
things that they got. We are. I mean, I tell my kids, I was like, look, you like the movie Ready Player One? We will live that. That is the next step.
You know what?
You will live in the pod, and
God used the Hornets before he could do it again. Use the Hornets to destroy the hive mind. He can do it again.
Yeah.
But honestly, here are a couple of the things. There will be the temple has to be rebuilt. Now,
Yeah.
can it be tabernacled? Absolutely. Can they tabernacle in half a year? Most definitely.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be
But the
a Solomon's Temple Part 2.
Nope, it doesn't. But there has to be something on Mount Zion.
Yeah, some sort of an agreement going on there. Yeah.
And the temple worship reinstituted. Did you hear
We've
that?
also got the red heifers here in Texas.
Did you
I heard
hear
that
that
stuff.
Hamana did October 7th because of the heifers in Jerusalem?
Nope.
Yeah.
I try not to. I already listen to enough conspiracy theory stuff that it makes. I have to take a break. So
I have
I don't know if
been
you ever listened
into
to Alex Jones.
eschatology since I was
used
a
to listen
child.
to
Alex
Jones all the
Jones, I
time.
love him.
I love Alex Jones. You know, he went kind of crazy. And because he does that for 4 hours a day. He does that for 4 hours a day.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
I met a chick in my previous job that she was doing one of the we did like they were basically like photo sessions, but they were for AI capture for all sorts of weird reasons. And so we had to take really specific types of photos and everything, but she had like super weird hair, and I live in Austin, dude. So I was like, she's probably some, crazy liberal chick. No, she was like part of InfoWars, and she like knows Alex Jones personally. And she was like going on and on at length about it, and I was like, "Well, this is fascinating." I don't even know if I still have her information, but she's really, really cool. And she kept
I hadn't stopped listening to him so much because it was driving me like where I was just like, "Dude, this is depressed
I think all
the
things
time."
in moderation,
because
though.
he's right about so much.
Yeah.
Like the gay frog stuff. I used to work with the product that he's talking about at my last job. It's called atrazine, and we had to wear like all kinds of special equipment to use it because it is so toxic, and it actually turns boy frogs into girl frogs. And
anyway, the only thing that she was saying that made me think of it was that she was always saying, "Oh, he's a national treasure," and that just cracked me up.
he just, I mean, he seems like a genuine sweetheart, and he just kind of lost it with the Sandy Hook stuff, which I mean, the dude went crazy. He went crazy. All of this.
Maybe
I listened to him during that time. I really did. I listened to him every day during that time. He maybe talked about that a handful of times, and he honestly wasn't even like espousing any full beliefs about it.
Yeah.
No, they crucified him so hard for that.
Yeah. It's because he helped
seemed
get Trump
like
elected.
it's or he was shining some light in places that powerful people didn't want.
He talked about I knew about Epstein like 10 years ago.
Right.
Bill Clinton going to the island and talking about it forever.
Yep. He's real interesting. I wouldn't want to walk in his shoes, but I respect him.
Yeah, his character has been just assassinated, but that's all right.
Yep.
All right. Well, I got to get to bed because I got to wake up and go work.
You and me both. Hey, you want to give your plugins real quick, Dan?
So Metal Bible Podcast. You can find me on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, on all podcasting platforms. Just type in Metal Bible Podcast. I'm the only one. You'll see a cartoon with my bearded face on it and some cherubim seraphim on there. So yeah, just go ahead and check it out. Again, thank you guys so much. This has been awesome.
We're gonna sign off. God bless. We're gonna we'll go offline here in a second. We'll just chat real quick. God bless, guys. Shalom, shalom. The Lord bless you and keep you. Make His face shine upon you. Be gracious to you, and give you
Lord,
peace.
turn His countenance
towards
you
upon you
and give you peace. Shalom, shalom.
God
Maranatha, everyone.
Maranatha, guys.
Thank you for watching this episode of The Christian Theological Dark Web. For questions or comments, please email us at thechristiantheologicaldarkweb@gmail.com. If you'd like to support us, please look for the Patreon link in the description. This has been another production of CTDW Studios. Thank you, and God bless.